Unit 3 Health, Safety and Welfare in a Fitness Environment. Safeguarding Children. Aim of the session: to gain an understanding in safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. Learning outcomes. By the end of this session, you will be able to describe what is meant by safeguarding the welfare of children and vulnerable adults. Describe the responsibilities and limitations of a fitness instructor in regard to safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. Identify the signs, types of abuse which an instructor may encounter. Describe a fitness organization's policies and procedures in relation to safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. Learning outcomes continued. By the end of this session, you'll be able to describe the procedures to follow to protect oneself from accusations of abuse, identify the statutory agencies responsible for safeguarding children and vulnerable adults, and explain when it may be necessary to contact statutory agencies. Describe how to maintain the confidentiality of information relating to possible abuse. Policies and procedures when dealing with children and vulnerable adults. The key principles for any situation when working with children, young people, and vulnerable adults will always be similar in any code of practice and give details regarding behavior. In relation to behavior, adults must demonstrate proper personal behavior and conduct at all times. Competence. Adults working in the active leisure sector must keep a high level of competence by attaining qualifications and through a commitment to ongoing training that ensures safe and correct practice. Relationships. Adults must develop a relationship with children, vulnerable adults, and staff based on openness, honesty, mutual trust, and respect. And lastly, individuals' rights and responsibilities. Adults must always respect and champion the rights of every individual to participate in leisure activities. Behavior. Adults must demonstrate proper personal behavior and conduct at all times. Act as a role model. Uniforms and name badges are especially important when dealing with young children since it enables staff to be readily recognized. Know how to respond appropriately to any areas of concern. Adults should identify their own values and feelings in relation to child abuse since they may influence their actions. Companies' policies and procedures will detail their requirements. This will normally dependent upon the individual's role. If working with children, a CRB check is a legal requirement. References are extremely important when determining an individual's suitability. Extra qualifications and experience may be necessary. Relationships. Adults must develop a relationship with children, vulnerable adults, and staff based on openness, honesty, mutual trust, and respect. They must also therefore be able to respond in an appropriate manner to any information which may be disclosed to them. Individuals' rights and responsibilities. Adults must always respect and champion the rights of every individual to participate in leisure activities, recognizing the need to protect the rights of participation for fun, enjoyment, and achievement for all. Everyone has the right to live free from violence, fear, and abuse, be protected from harm and exploitation, be independent, which may involve some risk, and say no to anything they don't fully understand. Additional best practice guidelines. Firstly, working in an open environment and avoiding spending time alone with children away from others. Never offer a child a lift home if this would mean being alone with a child. Never take photographs of children and young people without the permission of the parents, carers, and the facility operators. If you are considering taking photos of a group activity, for example, all parents would have to give their permission in writing. Most centres will have a policy about taking photographs of children, and it is the staff's responsibility to ensure this is advertised and upheld by staff and the public alike. Types of possible abuse found in children and vulnerable adults. The instructor should remain vigilant in recognizing the signs and symptoms for the following forms of abuse: physical, emotional, sexual, neglect, bullying, and harassment. Instructors are not expected to be experts, but they do have a responsibility to act if they have any concerns about the behavior of an adult or a child towards another child. The term child abuse is used to describe the ways in which children can be harmed. An adult may abuse a child, or alternatively, a child may abuse another child. This may occur at home, school, or in a community setting such as a leisure centre. Child abuse affects the physical and mental development of a child. Indicators and signs of possible physical abuse, i.e., deliberate physical harm. Here are just a few examples: fear of parent being contacted, aggressive or angry outbursts, keeping arms and legs covered, withdrawn behavior, unexplained bruising or injuries, bruises which reflect hand marks, cigarette burns, running away, fear of going home, flinching, depression, bite marks, broken bones and skulls. Indicators and signs of possible emotional abuse, i.e., made feel worthless, unloved, unvalued. Here are just a few more examples: neurotic behavior, unable to take part, fear of making mistakes, sudden speech disorders, self-harm, fear of parents being contacted, developmentally delayed, and sudden speech disorders. Indicators and signs of possible sexual abuse, i.e., when children are used to meet the sexual needs of adults. Here are just a few examples: sudden changes in behavior, becoming aggressive or withdrawn, apparent fear of one person, running away, sexual drawings or language, bedwetting, self-harm or suicidal, advanced sexual knowledge, sexual behavior, pain, itching and bruising in the genital area, sexually transmitted diseases, stomach pains, discomfort when walking or sitting, and pregnancy. Indicators and signs of possible neglect, i.e., when adults fail to meet a child's basic needs. Here are a few examples: truancy and lateness, regularly alone and unsupervised, constant hunger, unkept state, weight loss, and inappropriate dress. Indicators and signs of possible bullying and harassment, i.e., deliberate hateful behavior. Here are just a few examples: shyness, insecurity, seems oversensitive. You may see indicators of physical and/or emotional abuse. How to respond and report suspected abuse. Dealing with evidence of abuse or an allegation is seldom straightforward. The adult may be shocked at what is heard and disturbed by what is heard or seen. However, action should always be taken. An organization will normally have its own child protection guidelines which will explain to whom it should be reported. This would normally be the child protection officer who is based within the centre or organization, or if they are not available, then there will be a senior manager. Abuse response guidelines. Stay calm, try not to display shock or disbelief, and accept what is being said. Listen carefully and allow the child to talk. Reassure them that they have done the right thing by telling you and that you take it seriously. Don't panic, judge. For example, saying to the child, "Why didn't you tell me before?" Promise to keep secrets or make the child repeat the story or ask leading questions. Only inform those who need to know. Do not approach the alleged abuser or the parents of the child. Record all details in writing. Be honest and explain that you have to tell someone else, but maintain contact with the child if possible. Statutory agencies. It is not for you to judge whether the person is being abused. It is your responsibility to act on what you've been told, heard, or observed by referring your concerns to one of the following: child welfare agencies, child welfare officers, social services, police, childline, child protection officer in the workplace, or appointed person or senior management. Maintaining the confidentiality of information relating to possible abuse. The child or vulnerable adult will and should be the center of the whole process, and their confidence, safety, and security must be assured. Here are just a few rules to stand by. Keep all written reports locked away securely. Confidentiality should be maintained on a need to know basis only. However, you should not take full responsibility. Whoever an instructor talks to, they will need to maintain confidentiality, but do not need to take full responsibility. The senior manager or child protection officer will expect to be informed so that an instructor can begin to protect the child or vulnerable adult and be supported in what could be a difficult situation. Company procedures will normally require that you inform your line manager, who should therefore be able to support and assist you. Learning outcomes. Can you now describe what is meant by safeguarding the welfare of children and vulnerable adults? Describe the responsibilities and limitations of a fitness instructor in regard to safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. Identify the signs and types of abuse which an instructor may encounter. Describe a fitness organization's policies and procedures in relation to safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. Learning outcomes continued. Can you now describe the procedures to follow to protect oneself from accusations of abuse? Identify the statutory agencies responsible for safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. Explain when it may be necessary to contact statutory agencies. Describe how to maintain the confidentiality of information relating to possible abuse.